Everybody, it's Pearl Sharenza with Women's Successful Living, and welcome to another episode of Soulful Self-Care Conversations. And we have something new this week for you, and that is an in-house guest appearance. And I want to introduce you to my friend, Annmarie Entner. Tell everybody about yourself, Annmarie.
Hi, my name is Annmarie Entner. I always start with I am from the Northeast and I live in the Poconos in the Pennsylvania, the land of the lovers. And I am a autoimmune support coach. I work with women that are either newly diagnosed, struggling with their diagnosis, or just in a state of overwhelm because of their diagnosis. And I help them navigate from there to finding the life of their choice.
Sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Wow. So I have known Annmarie a little over around 3 years, right? About 3 years. And we met through a mutual friend a couple years ago. And Annmarie is also one of my clients. And she's like, "What are we going to talk about today?" I said, "I don't know. I won't tell you until we get on here." So she has no idea what we're talking about today. But if you're new to this show, welcome. We are talking everything about soulful self-care, about taking care of yourself and how to do that, and saying yes to yourself. So I just want to introduce the show to you if you haven't been on before, and just tell you can watch us on YouTube and everything. And sorry for our arms, we're just trying to make sure you can see Annmarie in here with no problems. But I want to first of all thank Annmarie for coming on and joining us, and let's get this off your head. There we go. I think we're getting there. We shall see. So just move yourself around. You get to see bloopers, you guys. This is really fun. So anyways, so I am a Say Yes to Your Life coach, and we just got back from two really great events. And so if you've been following me, you know that we do our Soulful Self-Care Pajama Retreat. We just had our ninth one. We're so excited because we are already up to having 10 more people coming on to join us. And so I want you to know that we are really, really excited for the next one upcoming. And Annmarie, tell everybody about how was it for you to come?
Oh, so this was my third time. We were discussing this morning that each time I come, I hear something different. And each time I've been there, you've had the same two of the same speakers. So the first time I knew Natalie Kime was there and she talks financial, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get to talk to her. And then last year it was kind of like, hey, I'm in a good space. And then this year I realized, crap, I'm so quick to help everybody with their finances that I'm not looking at my own, and that's in my business. I think I'm doing it. And as she was talking, I realized, nope, I am missing that. So each time I've come, I've learned something. And then, of course, there's Trish. She does well, now she's going to be a menopause coach. So I'm wicked excited about that. And she kind of touched a little bit on it. And I am post menopause. And if you know anyone out there that has, been recently diagnosed in their 50s, um, it gets a little bit more exacerbated with when going through menopause. And I am on that other side, and it's hard. I'm not going to lie, it's a bit hard. So Trish gave me some techniques. I'm just going to throw that out there. Some tips on what to do and how to spice up my life a little bit with my husband.
So I'm glad you talked about both of them. We had some amazing speakers, and as she mentioned, we had Trish Decker, who is she's becoming a menopause coach, but she helped you put the romance back in your life. I don't remember her exact trademark phrase, but just going to share that for a moment, because we do talk about self-care here on the show, and having sexual self-care is really, really important. And so funny story is that when Trish first came to me about being a part of our retreat, about this is her fourth year, I believe, coming. I was like, you get 10 minutes, that's it. And her first time being with us, I think we went over an hour. And now she is a must, the retreat. She's coming again next year. She's going to be talking about menopause. But really, for those women that are listening to us that are in that menopause, that struggle to enjoy your sex life, I just want you to know Trish is your girl. And she's been on the episodes with us before, so make sure you go catch her episodes. Her name is Trish Decker. And then also you mentioned Natalie. Natalie, I love Natalie because Natalie Kime talks about wealth. And she talks about how much women and wealth is so important. And it was funny because right after we went to the retreat, we actually went to an event. It was called Be You Brand with Ati. And her last guest that was there was giving us some amazing stats that over the next few years, women are going to be the big wealth people. Like she was sharing how like Warren Buffett, he's probably going to leave a lot of his wealth. God bless the man, he's in his 90s, probably to a lineage of women. So we as women collectively, you listening to us as women, we do have a huge impact. And to our younger girls that are coming up, we can really make a difference, be that example. So it's really great to have both those different perspectives. Natalie is coming back next year again. She's going to be sharing on wealth as well. We also had our other speakers. We had was Carol Gill, who spoke about the disc profile, about relationships and how to understand each other's relationships. And then we also had, of course, myself. I spoke about everything self-care, about saying yes to yourself, like you just won the $1.7 million. We had Mia Hanks on, who shared about relationships and how to understand different relationships, like narcissist relationships, and she explained about the love bombing and things like that. So if you're somebody who is struggling with that, I want to encourage you to go find that episode here on Soulful Self-Care Conversations, because she's been a guest. And another guest that we had that spoke, that's been on the show before too, was Angie Grimes. And it was really cool. One of the things that I love about our retreat is that we empower women at this retreat to step out of their comfort zone, to understand that the room we create is a safe space, that you can share anything that's on your mind. And both Angie and Mia shared their stories that really hadn't been heard by other people out there. And Angie, I could see like she had this kind of like look on her face. And I pulled her aside. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she was called to ask me if she could switch up what her talk was about, because she wanted to share her story, and only four other people knew her story. And I was like, absolutely, let's go. And then the cool thing was I asked her what she originally was going to talk about. And we do this really secret thing. We're not going to tell you what happens, but there's a secret thing that involves your family and friends when you come to the retreat. And so this secret little gift that we get from your family and friends, what Angie was doing was affirmations. And if you go watch you go watch me on Instagram, you'll see a picture of the affirmations. We actually took affirmations and we actually placed them on all the ladies that were at the retreat. So Angie totally stepped out of her box and was sharing. So it was really, really, really amazing. It was awesome to have all of their expertise. We also had our amazing chef. So we had Elizabeth with Ocean Sands Events here in Tampa, Florida. She not only was our chef, but she worked with the ladies on creating their own charcuterie cup, and how everything we put into our cup has meaning, and how we lovingly take care of ourselves. So the type of cheese you put in your cup, the type of meat you're putting in your cup, it all had a meaning together. And so it was really beautiful to tie together all that overflowing of your cup. So we had a great weekend and a great event the entire weekend. And next year is our 10th anniversary. We're really excited. I think everybody that was there is coming back next year. We only have like 10 spots left. So we have 25 people. So more than half of it is full. So we do have the VIP option. So if you want your own room, because you don't want to share a room or bed with somebody, there are options. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to wslivingretreats.com. Again, it's wslivingretreats.com, and you can grab your spot. But what I want to do is I want to pause here for a second so we can put that up for you so you can have time to look for that. So we're going to take a pause. We're going to throw up the website on here. Our editor's going to do a great job. Put a picture of the website so you can see what it's all about. And then we're going to come back and ask Annmarie some more questions. So we'll be right back with you. All right, so we're back. So hopefully you went to wslivingretreats.com and grabbed a spot. And if you have questions, you can reach us through there as well. But what I want to do is kind of do a little shift. And so Annmarie's like, oh my God, what are we doing now? So as I said before, Annmarie is somebody who's come to the retreat. She's spoken at the retreat before, but she's also a client. She's also one of my coaching clients. And so this morning we did a little in-person coaching. And one of the parts of our Shiro method is talking about communicating our realistic expectations and how to have those conversations with our loved ones, our business partners, if you're a professional at work, or if you're that CEO mom that stays at home all day long and you run your household, your house is a business. So having conversations and communicating your realistic expectations with your family, with your kids, and all of that. So we talked about that a little bit this morning, and we talked about the pause. We talked about how, and if this resonated with you, please take notes. But we talked about how sometimes we want to have a conversation with somebody and we want to like pour in and be like, oh, I know that information, or I want to add to that information. And we're so excited to share, or sometimes we have to work on that part of our communication that we sort of just go in and we start just dumping in there. And so what I want to do is talk to Annmarie about that information. So we're going to get started here on that. All right, so we are going to talk about, as we said, we're talking about the communicating unrealistic expectations. We took a little pause there. Sorry to our editor, he's going to fix all this. So let's talk about the power of the pause for a second. And what we were talking about is sometimes, as we were saying, we get so into what somebody's saying that we think we want to add to it, and that we don't stop to what we call mirror the conversation, to sort of like have that conversation with the other one to say, I believe I hear you saying this, and maybe you feel like this. How am I understanding the conversation? So and sometimes what we do is just going, well, I think you should do this, and I believe you should do that. You know, we have those sort of conversations. So when we talk about that this morning, Annmarie, share with the audience what some of that brought out for you.
Well, number one, it brought, and I'm going to cry probably because it's the truth. I was raised to not. They said I didn't listen and don't ask questions. So I believe I'm listening, but not really. And I'm speaking. I'm not asking the questions. I'm not asking the correct questions. I'm not acknowledging what they're saying. So I'm giving them all the information really quick, opposed to giving them validation that I hear them.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was it was a lot. We talked about a lot, and that's still swirling in my head.
Yeah, and we did, and like Emery said, if you're listening to us, sometimes things in our lives will trigger us. Like when you're a child, if you're told, we always talk about on the show here, what you say to your kids up to the age 7 is very impactful. And Emery is an example, and even I too, that what we were told when we were younger was our voice didn't matter because we were told, you don't know, or you're not important enough, or go stand in the corner because the adults are talking, right? Or sometimes some of you might have been told you weren't smart enough, you don't know better. And so those things can resonate with us, and those things can show up for us in conversations as we become adults and as we interact with other people. And so those triggers can keep us from being able to have a mirrored conversation with somebody, or not allowing that person to express what's on their mind. And we feel like we want to go in and kind of cover up the conversation or take over the conversation. And so one of the things we talked about was doing some journaling, and I have my notes here. So I'm going to pull out my notes that we talked about. And so one of the things we talked about is, what do I truly want, and what am I looking out of? I'm sorry, what do I truly want, and what am I doing out of fear or old patterns, right? So sometimes when we reflect back on our conversations, we look back and we can say, was that a conversation I truly wanted to have, or did I not allow myself to allow that other person to be heard?
Yeah, and I think for me right now, I'm in such a whirlwind, and a lot came out at Pearl's retreat. I'm not gonna not tell you that, but I think for me, hearing that conversation, that question was like, holy blank. Um, I'm in that I'm in that old spiral, that old behavior of that little girl. I mean, you tapped right into that. That was that little girl of, well, they don't want to hear me, so now I'm just gonna be loud.
Right. Yeah, because that's sort of a coping mechanism too. Like when we think we don't want to be heard, somebody's told us they don't want to hear us, so we want to be loud so we can say, "Hey, I'm over here. Here I am. Listen to me." We become louder, which then takes away from us really being able to communicate our realistic expectations, because now we're not doing it. Now we're just saying, "I'm here. Come hear me, and I want to be heard."
Mm-hmm.
And so when we can take a step back and doing some reflective journaling, and really understanding what we're doing, it can make a difference in our expectations. So I'm going to go, if you're okay, I want to kind of go over some of the reflective exercise we talked about.
Sure, go
All
right
right.
ahead. Because honestly, it hit home.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know me, I'm an open book, so.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about, so if you're listening, get a pen and paper out and get some notes, because if you struggle with feeling like you're not being heard, or you struggle with like taking over a conversation so that you can be heard, these are some exercises I think you're going to find useful for yourself. And so we talked about, for Annmarie, it's sort of like being stuck in a loop from that little girl. Like, I matter, I have something to say, please listen to me, right? So what happens is, if we don't start connecting with others, and we can get disconnected. And so we feel like saying the most, but feeling the most of what others bring to the table, we're not hearing. So if Annmarie and I have a conversation and she felt like, well, she's not being heard, she might try to take over the conversation, old habits, and therefore she's not really hearing what I have to bring to the table, right? So what we talked about was what's called the practice of taking the pause. And that really, is from being we always want to be especially for people pleasers, it's really hard to take the pause because we want to become one of the things we want to do is become the listener, which Amory's done a really great job working on, like becoming a listener, but things can come up and trigger us. And we're not going to go into what triggered Amory, but Amory had some triggers that kind of pulled her back from the work she'd been working on and digging into. So one of the things we talked about is how can she find power in the curiosity instead of controlling what and how that shift can happen. So having the curiosity of the conversation instead of thinking we have to control the conversation. And so here's some things we talked about doing. And one is asking yourself, am I centering or connecting? So what that means is like ask yourself, what is the person trying to express that I haven't fully heard yet? Like, what is that person trying to say? And sort of like mirror the conversation. Anne-Marie might say something like, I feel like this happened at this event and this is how, it upset me. It made me feel like I wasn't being heard. So my mirroring of the conversation could be like, wow, so you're at this event and you felt like things were happening and you felt like we were ignoring the situation. Like nobody was seeing that you had an important conversation to add to it. And so what we talked about is like writing down after the conversation, did she reflect did you let's so you write this down, did you reflect their feelings before you added your own? So in other words, in that conversation, by me reflecting what she was feeling, I was letting her know I hear her, and then I could say, wow, I'm so sorry you felt that way, and maybe if we go prepared into a next situation, we'll have tools in our toolbox to help you handle that conversation or that situation differently. And so then what you can do too is always ask somebody. It's okay to ask somebody,
Mm-hmm.
what was that like for you? Like sharing with me today, like having a conversation and ask that person, because, there could be situations where people are not comfortable with sharing what they have in their mind or how they're feeling about a situation. And so if you can get somebody to open up and like really hear them, pause before you react to the conversation, and then ask them how that felt to share, it can open up a whole new way of communicating with one another. What do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So for me, as you're talking, I'm thinking, wow, I'm being quiet and I'm absorbing what you're saying now. And even just having that conversation a few hours ago, I'm already pausing
Right.
because I know before I'd be like, wait, 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 you forgot about that part of the story. Oh, wait, wait, wait,
Right.
that happened in there. And for me right now, it's like, oh, this is already working.
Yeah, because it's really powerful. And I share with Emery, like I did this too before. I took a Dale Carnegie class, and we're actually going to be working on that book as well, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I remember taking that class and being able to learn the power of the pause and allowing others to be heard. That's how you can win friends and influence people, because you're allowing them to express their conversation, take a pause, reflect what they said to you, and then add what you think could be powerful in the conversation, or ask more questions to have a better understanding of what they're trying to explain to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And go ahead, want to share anything
Well,
with that?
and not, I don't even know if I need to share. I think it's more of just listening, because we're not listening and because we don't feel like we're being heard. We already have our sentence going before
Mhm.
you even finish your sentence,
Right.
especially in my, and I know that for sure. Um, which is, and I said to you, this is like an old behavior.
Right.
But like you said, I got triggered over something in the beginning of the year. It happened at Christmas, and I've set myself back. I allowed myself to set myself back, and now I don't want to be back anymore.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that you allowed yourself, and that's really important. So we have a choice. So those of you who are listening and maybe haven't heard this before, we have a choice to allow somebody's trigger to bring us down the rabbit hole, or be like a stopgap. And
Mhm.
and Amory and I both know about PQ and how our judge and saboteur can play those tricks on us to tell us we're not worthy and can bring us down that rabbit hole. And so we talked about getting back to our PQs and taking
Okay.
time. And if you're new, you can go to pearlsurvey.com/PQ quiz, and you can take the quiz, but it will tell you, like, are you a people pleaser? Are you a controller? Are you, high achiever? There's different parts of the quiz you can take and see how you show up, and how you show up and your score. And there's nothing bad with the score. It just tells you where you're at and how you can overcome and how to learn to interact with others based on your score. So a people pleaser, kind of like what you just said,
Mm.
we already have our conversation ready, or we already know we're going to show up for you. So why am I going to have a conversation ready to say no? Right. And so as an overcoming people pleaser, we have to be able to learn and stop. The pause is so powerful, and say, if Anne-Marie asks me to do something, I'm going to immediately stop and ask myself, does it align with what I want to do and what my goals are this year? And if it's no, then it's like, Emery, that's great. I love that you
Mm-hmm.
want to do that. And it's just not a good fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I say, will it fill my cup? And it's a yes, then I'll be like, okay, I would love to be part of that. We have the power of the word no. We think as people pleasers, when we say no, we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. I think we don't like them. We're selfish. And it's true. It's really not true. It's okay to say no because the power of the no actually can open up a door for somebody else to step into the yes that might have been able to show up better than you could show up. Because when we show up for things that really don't serve us, we're not showing up the way they want us to, the way they asked us to, because they know the power of our being. And so those are some things that we work on when Amber and I are coaching. But I want to also come back to the power of the pause. And one of the things we talked about is having a journal reflection. So Amory has a lot of really cool assignment. And so you guys can do this as well with her over the next couple weeks. I would love for you to, and if you don't catch this, go back and listen or read the show notes. It will be in the show notes. But these are some really cool journal prompts you can ask yourself. And so I'm gonna pull them up and just read them to you. And one is I call this my Cheryl listening and healing mini journal. And so what this is, it's about having a way to center and connect your conversation. So one might be is, what is this person trying to express that I haven't fully heard yet? We talked about like that. What are they trying to tell me that maybe I'm not hearing that I need to ask questions? Like again, like we said earlier, I felt I loved this about the conversation. And did you reflect their feelings before you added your own, right? Did you validate their feelings and then say, and I feel like this, or and I see this, right? Never use the but word because the but is the eraser. That the
Yeah.
but is a big
You say
eraser.
that, and I always say anything after but means bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. So the butt is a big eraser. And then always be open to asking the person, what was that like for you to share with me today? Because sometimes people are afraid to share. They're afraid how you're going to react, and so it might be like I gave Anne-Marie the example, like with my husband, he'll come home sometimes like, how was your day? And he's like, life. And those who have followed my show know that we lost our son 3 years ago. And when Chuck responds life, that means that I understand he's missing Matthew. That's a day that he's like, this is a tough day for me with our loss of our son. So then I can have a conversation about, oh, in what way are you missing him? What about him are you missing? I can open up the conversation and have that. And then I can ask him later, how did that feel about sharing that? Did that help, relieve some of the grief that you're having today? So you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's actually pretty accurate. Just sitting here and listening to you do this, it's just going over what we talked about earlier, and it's not triggering or even anything like that. It's just reinforcing me that I get to do this work.
Right. I love that you said that. You get to do this work. People ask, why do I need a coach or why do I need a therapist? Whatever works for you, that's what you need to do. And the thing is, you get to do it. You get to go work on yourself
Hmm.
because we need help sometimes. Life is busy. Life is crazy.
Yeah.
Since COVID, it's got, everybody's gone back to this crazy world of always busy and not stopping and thinking about self, not overflowing your cup. And that truly is real. Overflowing your cup is real.
Yeah, it's very and I go back to like I get to do this work now as a coach myself. I'm doing that for my clients. I stopped doing it for myself.
Yeah. And
And that's why I mean we all say a coach needs a coach.
Yep, a coach. I have a coach.
Right,
And I'm your coach, and you
yeah.
got a business coach too.
I got a business
Yep.
coach, I have it for different aspects of my life, but I mean it's definitely um it was again, it's reinforcing everything that we did this morning that again, I allowed myself to step backwards and I get to move forward and get out of that muck.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it. So if you're watching and listening, there's nothing wrong with getting in these rabbit holes or these mucks, as
Yeah.
Emily just called. There's nothing wrong. 'Cause it's not what becomes a challenge when you allow yourself to stay in the muck or allow yourself to stay in the rabbit hole. That's when you're not doing the hard work. That's when you're not facing the mirror and going, I got to do this crap because if
Hmm.
I don't, I'm not going to have good relationships. I'm not going to be able to communicate with my loved ones. I'm not going to be able to be as successful in my business that I want to be. And so that's why doing this work is so important. Even if it scares the bejeebies out of you, you've got to do this work. So the other part of it we talked about too is here's some mini journal prompts that you can do for yourself. So get your pen and paper and write this down. What first prompt is when I'm not heard, how do I respond? So when you aren't heard, how do you respond? You want to share how you respond sometimes?
Well, I just speak through you, number one.
Yeah,
uh,
through you or over you,
through
right?
you or over you, or I'll go back later sometimes and that was another thing I remembered that I'll go back later after the conversation is done and be like, hey, this is what I wanted to say to you. Like what I had to say was much more important
Right.
than everybody else's. Maybe it can contribute and help, but it's like, this was my experience. I need to tell you it so it can help you, opposed to, I hear you, I understand you, and I got through it. If you
Right.
want help, I'll help you.
Or even just how can I support you?
Yeah, well, that's what I meant,
Yeah.
support.
No,
But yeah,
right. But
but
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, and again, it's this old behavior that came back to me, and I'm trying really hard not to be ashamed of it.
Don't be ashamed of it.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not, but
Yeah.
but that's another
It's,
old behavior because now I've attached something to it. Again, this is why you have a coach.
right. Yeah.
I attached like, okay, I made a mistake. And again, make a mistake, being a failure. Those are all old, very old tapes that are in my head.
Mm-hmm.
They are not my voice by any means. But I lived a long time like that with their voices in my head. And now at one point you were in my head and those voices have returned.
Yeah. And the thing is, I like what you call that old tape. So if you're listening, think about that. What old tapes when you were a younger child or somebody said something that you just keep replaying, right? The old tapes don't serve you anymore. They
Mm-mm.
can be erased. You don't have to carry those tapes. You don't have to replay. It's just like listening to your favorite music. Sometimes you outgrow your favorite music or your favorite artist and you're like, you know what? I mean, I have my favorite actor that when I was younger, I don't like him anymore. And so I don't watch him anymore. So you can stop the tapes, you can delete the tapes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just that's where the hard work comes in, is to practice deletion of the tapes, the
Mm.
practice of rewinding the tapes in your head. And so when you delete those tapes and you no longer rewind them, that's when the real hard work starts to show up for yourself. I love that you call that delete the tapes.
Yeah, definitely you can, and I call it control alt delete because it's almost like a
Yeah,
computer, like you're totally getting rid
on
of
your
it
yeah.
on your computer.
Yeah. And so the other prompt we had is what part of me believes I have to be the loudest or most dramatic to be noticed? So what part of you believes you have to be the loudest and most dramatic to be noticed? Again, it goes to that part when you're that
Mm-hmm.
inner child work to be like, I'm not being heard, so come hear me out. Let me say it really, really loud, as opposed to sitting back and going, what do they really want me to learn from what they're sharing with me? How can I be part of the conversation without taking over the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really great prompt. But this one I like. This is the hardest one of the hardest one I think that we don't sit with sometimes. We just want to brush it off. And if you grew up in a household like I did, where my parents would have a disagreement and they just would not talk, and you would walk in the house and it was like
Mm-hmm.
you're walking on eggshells, and you all of a sudden everything was fine. You're like, what happened? Right. And so this part here is, how might my past experiences with authority or family still be shaping my reactions today? For me, when I met Chuck, I just, if I was upset with him, I just wouldn't respond. I would just shut up and not say anything and just be mad at him until I thought I was over it. And he was like, well, I can't be understanding of what upset you that I did or said if you don't tell me. So he started having the conversation for me, and that's when I started coming out going, wait, I wouldn't have said it that way. And that's when I really started learning to communicate. And then years later, many more years later, in the Dale Carnegie course I took, I was able to understand how I can frame a conversation so that I feel like I'm being heard and the other person feels like they're being heard, and we can mirror each other's
Mm-hmm.
conversation and not feel like we're not being heard.
Yeah, and that's when I started to actually cry. So I was like, I know exactly where that came from. That
Hmm.
was, I was told, you don't listen and you ask too many questions. Because
Right.
I was listening, I didn't understand.
So you would ask
So I would
questions.
ask questions. So it was
Okay.
very,
Yeah.
contradictory by all means. And you were too much, you're too loud. So what did I do? I became too loud and too much, and because I think I wasn't being heard or seen.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things going to be for you as you work over this the next couple weeks is to like become quieter, is to sit back and not be the loudest voice in the room, like to be that quiet Anne-Marie that says, let me sit back and hear
Mm-hmm.
and receive what they're saying and then respond with, this is what I believe that I'm hearing. Tell me if I'm accurate.
So you're very accurate about all that. But I think what happened was I got really, 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 really quiet, and I
Hmm.
started to just absorb it.
Right,
And then I was like, that's it. I can't take it anymore.
right.
And I think I can even say it today. I'm just tired of all the crap. I'm just tired. No one's hearing me. I'm trying to explain myself. And that was so old.
Right.
It was such an old thing. I'm just tired of everyone. I'm tired of catering to people. I'm tired of doing this for people. I'm tired, and I did, like we talked about, I did back away from one person because I'm there, they don't serve me.
Right.
But I am helping one person that's connected to them. And that to me was, I could do that,
Right.
which was huge
Yes.
for me. Because
Yeah.
I am that person that jumps in to help.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was like a first time that I was like, oh no, no, that person cannot be, no,
Right.
no,
And
no.
it gives you, you bring up boundaries, but I want to step back for 1 second. That's like when we think we have to be the loudest in the room, that's when people really don't listen to us
Mm-hmm.
because we become so loud. They're like, I don't want to hear anything that person has to say because they're too loud and it's too much for me, right? We can become too
Mm-hmm.
much for somebody. So that's where the practice of the pause, that's like putting some of these things in place will allow us to step back, allow people to hear what we have to say, and they get to see that we do see and hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, let's go back to what you just said too about boundaries. We get to set boundaries. For those of you who are listening, you get to say no. It's not that I have to say no, it's you get to say no. You also get to say yes what you want to say yes to. And saying no is actually saying yes to yourself. And one of the funny things we talked about this weekend was Mary Gooden was she was our yoga specialist, she was our Reiki specialist. We also had Amy who did our massages. But Mary talked about this whole 10x, and I know that comes from, I'm not going to say his name here, and it's old, but it was really cool to hear it again, but to frame it in the way that why can't I 10x myself? Why can't I up level myself? Why can't I, treat myself to getting a first class seat in an airplane, getting that Gucci shoes or Gucci purse I want to get just because I think, oh, I don't need to, I can't afford that. That's just, we're telling ourselves instead of saying, I get to have the first class seat in the airplane. I get to go buy those shoes that I want at the Gucci store or wherever that might be for you, right? So you get to do those things. And so that it's really powerful when we can step back and be, boundaries, right? And so when you say no to others, you're actually saying yes to yourself. But you want to add anything to that?
No, no, no. I agree with that. And I do that too. I do that with my clients that, you get to say yes to yourself and you get to say no. I mean, I work with them, having a condition that already is taxing on your body and it's a stressful situation at best that stops you from moving forward because of the pain. Um, we work at like, well, how do we work towards like, oh, you got a family function coming and these are the things that may come up, and on a regular person would be like, oh, I got this, I can handle it. But someone that has a condition like I have, we're worried about our condition, we're worried about the person, we're about interacting, and I tell them that it's okay to say no, you can't go.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm saying yes
Yeah.
to you.
That's yeah.
Or it's okay just to shake your head and nod and
Right.
not say anything. Or if you have the need, you set the boundary then, like I'm coming, and if A, B, and C happens, I'm leaving.
Right. Yeah. Because you get to make those
Yeah,
choices, and
and
it's
that's all
really
about protecting not just their peace. It's really protecting their body and their mind because, again, when we have this condition, there's the stress that we put on ourselves on everyday stress is 10 times, and I don't mean to use
right.
10 exit, but it's 10 times um, rebounds on us,
Right.
where somebody else would have a little bit of stress and it would bother them,
Right.
but ours becomes a physical sensation in us and almost immediately.
Yeah. And so that's what, your past experiences with your family, you get to reshape your reaction. So you
Hmm.
get to choose, yes, I'm going to go to that. Hey, this person's going to be there. This is how I'm going to respond. Many of you watch my show and I talk about how I've divorced my parents. And I tell my brother all the time, I'm not a hypocrite. So when my parents do pass away, give me the respect of letting me know my parents have passed away just so I can honor that. And if you need me to be there for you to help anything, and if you want me there for the funeral, I'll be there for you.
Hmm.
But if you need me there to be that person who's at the house and cleaning up or doing whatever, that's how I'll show up. I'm not going to show up and be like at a funeral, go, oh, woe, it's me, oh, they're my parents. No, they chose this path. And it was interesting, a couple of months ago, my brother, I know he went to go see my mom, and I just asked, I hope she's doing well. And it's like, well, she's alive, you can call her. I'm like, yeah, no, I already got my boundaries. And if she really wanted to be part of that conversation, she would pick up the phone and call because these are the things that she did.
Hmm.
And my boundary is, if you can't reach out to me and acknowledge, and this past weekend, I mean, somebody asked me when I was talking about that at the retreat, somebody's like, well, they're your parents. And I say, so let me ask you this conversation. So if you're listening and you have divorced somebody in your life, ask them, if that was my spouse and my spouse was being narcissist and gaslighting me, would you want me to stay with them? The answer is going to be no. And if it's not, then you need to ask for a new friend because they should be holding you accountable to what kind of relationship you're in. So that's how I set my boundaries. And I'm very true to my boundaries. I've opened up the gate before and try to let them both back in, and they've not done that. So our past, it also reflects our reactions. All right. So now the last one we want to talk about is this. This is a really great prompt. What would it look like to trust that I can be loved even in my silence?
And that was really a
Yeah.
I don't think I don't really think I had an answer, did
No,
I?
you didn't really have an
I
answer.
didn't really have an answer, but I think it's the curiosity of it that's got me
Yeah.
going, because what if I can
Yeah.
just be happy in silence?
Yeah. And
What if
what if I don't react? What if I just don't have
Right.
a reaction and
And
I allow that person to love me, and I allow that I'm going to trust that what they're saying to me is out of love,
Mhm.
and I don't need to react.
Right. And then if I'm correct with how this is all going to work with me, so I practice this, that pause. There is one person in my life that I'm trying to divorce, and I will have that same kind of boundary. I had it, and that was kind of what sent me on my spiral. But I get to be, when that happens again, I don't respond.
Right. That's you get to not
Right,
respond.
right.
Right.
I get to
And
not
that's
respond.
important. I'm glad you said that too, because when we do open the fence, and that's something you and I talk about working on,
Mhm.
is just because you open the fence and let them back in, if they don't follow the boundaries you've set, lock the fence back up, but don't let them rabbit hole you into
Mhm.
what they did, right? So you need to recognize, if you're listening to us, recognize old habits that creep up that's keeping you in that spiral or that down or in that
Mhm.
rabbit hole of going, oh, woe is me, and I need to be loud because nobody's hearing me. It's really, really important to do that.
Mhm.
So one of the homework that Annmarie has, if you're listening to us and you're reading the notes, is like take 10 quiet moments to journal freely, like really breathe and think about these things. Because this is going to allow your voice to emerge the way you want it to do. And it's actually going to be a safe space for you as you practice
Yes,
this.
yes,
It's going
it
to feel
will.
safe.
Yeah, and I think, and this is just me, if you want to do this, you need to have someone to bounce it off of.
Right.
Because I don't believe, for me anyway, this would work doing it by myself, because I would want to be able to vocalize, like, well, this is what's coming up.
Right.
And sometimes that person you want to do it with, even though it's my husband, he has a whole different view of me and may not see what exactly is going on. Although I think he does see it, but he loves me so much that um he can't be impartial.
Right. They want to protect our feelings.
Right.
They want to be our protector. They want to be our provider and all that. So sometimes they're not the person you go to. So I'm glad you said that. So as Annmarie said, if any of this is resonating with you and you want some guidance and you want to talk about, how do you practice the pause? How do you not be loud so you feel like you can be heard and seen? That's what I would love to have a conversation with you on. And it's something that you can grab a free 15-minute call from me to find out what that looks like. And all you have to do is go to wsliving.com. That's wsliving.com. And just click on the link to contact me, and you can book a 15-minute free phone call with me. And we can talk about what does it look like to have your voice be heard even in the pause. Because it's really, really important that we understand that you can, you can pause, you can connect, and you can be heard. But it's how we do it that makes a difference. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, again, the conversation has just been really wonderful. So I think about, like, what that would be in that pause, and what other people will see in me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm looking at it, and I think they're going to be like, "Oh God, like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with her? She's being quiet."
Yeah.
And then that'll open up a conversation, like, "Why are you quiet?" And I get to say, "Listen, I really don't have much to say right now, and
Right.
that's okay."
And that's okay. It's I want to share something that you just brought up. I want to use this as an example, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
She doesn't know what I'm going to use example is. So one of the things when Annmarie was coming to my retreat, the things we've been working on, she was like, "I'm just going to show up and I'm just going to do everything that I want to do. You know how I show up." And I'm like, "No, you're not. You're not going to show up, and you're not going to people please." And so one of the things we talked about was not showing up people pleasing. We had a situation that happened, and she kept trying to give me some of my coaching stuff back in my face. And I said,
Mhm.
I looked at her, I said, just don't people please me.
Yeah.
And that's all my response was to her.
Mm.
And that's because she was doing exactly what I told her not to do. And I'm not going to call her out on it. So my pause was to her was just
Mhm.
don't people please me. And she soaked it in, and she came back later, and we had a good conversation, and, we came together, and we, she was, I told her an apology wasn't needed because she needed to figure out the work. And I appreciate, that's another thing too, is when we do recognize
Mhm.
that there's something we need to apologize for, it's okay to say, hey, I'm sorry, this is what was going on, which brings me to say that if you have a situation like, you were just saying, like, you want to take a pause, sometimes a pause can be, a couple of days. Sometimes it can be, you know what, right now, I want to take a step back because I need some time to think about what you said to me. I heard you say this, and I need to make sure for me, I want to take a step back and
Mhm.
process it. Can I come back to you in, in a
Yeah.
little bit, 24 hours, whatever that is? There's a lot of power in that.
And I had been doing that, and I was getting really good at it. And again, I allowed that scenario, that situation, episode, whatever you want to call it, because I'm not even know if I want to give a name to it. It just happened. Um, I didn't give myself my own pause.
Right.
I think that's more important. I don't know if we even talked about that. That I didn't give
Yeah.
me a pause.
Yeah. You didn't give yourself a
I didn't give
pause.
myself a pause to absorb what happened. I
Right.
went straight to, holy crap, this is really
Right.
happened. I can't believe and I went straight to punishment of myself.
Right. And we do that. We punish ourselves because how we react, and it's give yourself grace, And Anne-Marie, I think she expected me to react a different way. And I was just like, don't people please me. Like somebody even said, wow, like you did that. I'm like, for me to react to what she was going through would do no good. It was just like, okay, just don't people please me. Was I upset? Yes, I was
Mhm.
upset. It was because, it took all I had of me to also work on me and being like,
Mhm.
I got to take the pause and not react the way I would probably wanted to react my old way. And so, there's a lot of power in a pause, not just for a few minutes, but also for a day or two if you need to
Mhm.
do that. And just be like, you know what, I want to honor what you're telling me, and I need to process what you're saying to me. So can I come back to you in a couple of days or in 24 hours, whatever that is for you? But don't forget to go back.
Mhm.
Don't say I need a couple of days, because if you don't go back, that's when things start really getting
Yeah,
out of
I did
control.
take the pause.
Yeah.
Not realizing it. I definitely took a
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah.
I did a lot of journaling,
Yeah.
and I journal a lot already.
You do.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a definitely like, and I'm the journaler that if something comes on, I'm grabbing like a piece of paper, tissue, or something.
Or your phone.
Yeah,
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 listen, you can journal on your phone, you guys. It
yeah,
doesn't matter what you have in front of
yeah.
you. You can journal. You can voice dump on your phone if you need a voice dump on your phone, all of that stuff. So, but we wanted to come on today and just be like, because I know we're not the only one. I'm
Oh,
coaching on this. I know I struggle with this sometimes. And so we thought it was a really powerful segment to share with you that, listening and healing is important, and it becomes part of a really beautiful relationship when you can have that relationship with yourself, but also do it for others. So we're going to put all this in the show notes. So you can go in and take the show notes and get copies of it. But before we end the show, we're going to do what we always do, and that's our Better Questions, Better Life cards. Our dear friend Carol Gill and her friend Diane Allen created these. I get no credit for these. Although I will tell you guys, I do have my own cards coming soon, so keep an eye out. But they're called Better Questions, Better Life. And so I'm going to shuffle these cards, and Anne-Marie's going to pick one, and she's going to answer the card. So I will shuffle them. Okay, so
okay.
you pick a card.
All right. I want this one.
Okay, read the card.
Ah, how appropriate is this?
Oh, what if my inner voice is right? What if your inner voice is right?
What if?
Yeah.
That's it. What if is right? And
Yeah.
what if it is that to take that pause and be like, I don't need to answer them.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
What
what
if
if
your
my-
inner voice is right? And my inner voice before wasn't really speaking.
Right.
It was reacting.
Yep. That's so true. So what if your inner voice is right? And if you want to learn more, like I said, go to wsliving.com to learn more. But I just want to remind you again, at the beginning of the show, we talked about our retreat. We've talked about it a few times here during the show. There are about 10 spots left. So if you want to grab a spot for next year, and by the way, the house that we're going to is called what, Anne-Marie?
The Pearl.
And I didn't do that on purpose, but it truly is in the Gulf Shores of Alabama. The house is called The Pearl. She's all booked. She's beautiful. She's pearly white. And
I'll be
so Anne-Marie's gonna be there. We got just about everybody who came this year is coming back next year. So if you're interested in coming back and joining us, just go to wslivingretreats.com. I just want to remind you again that you come into this world, you are a little rough oyster on the outside, but as you do the work like Anne-Marie's doing, you can open up and find your inner pearl of greatness. So go find your inner pearl of greatness. Be the hero that you are meant to be.
Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror?